Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
It's one thing to squint at a fuzzy video on YouTube and then decide space aliens do or do not exist. And it's another thing entirely to subject those sightings to the same kind of scientific rigor that puts, say, killers in prison. Scott Roeder is that kind of skeptic. He is an evidence expert and crime scene reconstructionist with 33 years of experience and 1,500 cases to his credit. He is the founder of the Evidence Room, a group that assembles specialists in forensic animation, 3D modeling, and motion graphics. He took a close look at the video that was recorded by that family in Las Vegas, and he applied his technology to try to debunk it. Here he is on his YouTube channel, Crime Scene, discussing what he calls the entity in the family's backyard.
We can take a video and look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say, to a degree of scientific certainty, that this entity, this thing in the video, is there in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there. Like, this is so critical because you can clearly see through the slots in the fence that there is a leg motion moving from the right to the left side of the screen. And clearly it is behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. This is a head of that is somehow that does not have full opacity, that the opacity of the head of the shadow is only at about 33% opacity versus a normal shadow, which would be at 100% opacity, or an object in the screen, which is at 100%. And this isn't anything that you did. It's just what you were able to determine, that this shadow being, or this being in the shadows, possibly creating its own shadow or smoky filter or cloaking technique, is not only cloaking itself from the people there, but cloaking itself from the camera itself, in that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow.
I'm joined now by UFO expert Ben Hansen. He's a former federal agent and now the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. Ben, it's great to have you on the program tonight again. So, I mean, your reaction to what, Scott Roeder did with his analytics, the shadow that you saw that was behind the fence as well as way above the fence, I guess your reaction to all of that.
Well, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I'm excited because it took a while, I think, for anyone to get a copy of the raw video. I don't personally have it, but I'm glad that Scott has done this. I don't detect anything overt as a red flag that I would say that made me suspect that it was edited. So I concur with him on that. And it also appears that there is some sort of shadow that's present behind the slats of the fence, which he pointed out. And then you have kind of a head, it looks like, at the top of the fence. Where I kind of feel it might be a jump is people online then started to say, well, this is evidence of a cloaking creature of some sort. There is a lot going on in the video. If you look, there's 2 or 3 different light sources. And anytime you have that happening, you can have a lot of shadows from different angles. So unfortunately, we'll never have the same exact circumstance where we can go back and test it to see what might be causing a shadow effect.
There is this one aspect of it, and I'm not sure if our producers can just let the video go, but when they walk in past the gate, something startles them and they freak out. I mean, for lack of a better description, there's no way this is acting. Actors don't do it this well. Something startles them to the right and they spin around and they kind of run out, and the video kind of goes, as it would if you were terrified.
It does, and I think that is genuine. If you look, I think they're looking at something towards the back of the yard, and something spooks them, where I feel that it might be a little bit of, I don't know, call it forensic gymnastics, is to say that it was caused by this thing off to the right, because you can see right there, that shadow appears on top of the fence, but he's not looking to the right. If this was some sort of entity that was like 3 feet away from him, I think that's what would really scare anybody. So that's where you have these theories that people are saying, well, it's partially cloaked, it's fully cloaked, didn't want to be seen, but only the video picked it up. So I don't know about that. I think just based on the video, though, it's great that we have verification that it's not been edited.
I know you talk about confirmation bias as well. Explain to the audience if how you think that might be working its way into this as an alternative theory.
Well, if you think about it and go back to the original, the whole background of what just preceded this, is you had this really bright object that streaked across the sky, right? And I do believe that that now is a meteoroid, and it may have nothing to do with the family's actual sighting. They believe they saw a light come down to their backyard. There was a lot of light and commotion, noise. And so when they went out to the backyard, they're already adrenaline's pumping. They're hypersensitive to sights and sounds. I'm in no way suggesting that they made anything up, but perception can be skewed now that this is something out of this world we're out to see in our backyard. And then anything that might have a combination of shadows or sights they're not used to, it can be amplified in your visual perception. And that's just a suggestion, but I do feel the witnesses are being credible as far as describing what they saw. And especially look at that reaction when they see whatever it is back there and they come running out of there, and it's affected at least Angel to this day. He still has trouble with what he saw.
Alex, good to see you. I have to ask you, what are you making? Because there's something really interesting about this, and it's that last night it was reported there was more strange activity in and around the home. What is going on here?
Right. The story goes that just about a year ago, the Kenmore family saw these mysterious, unidentifiable creatures in their backyard right here behind me, right? They said that they were 10-foot-tall creatures, that they were standing there looking at them. They could see them breathing. Angel says that he was actually growling at him, freaking them out so much that they actually called 911. Well, it turns out that these unidentified, unexplainable phenomenon didn't just stop at that night. Angel went into great detail with me during our one-on-one conversation about other paranormal activity that's been happening, but this time inside of their house. It goes beyond just seeing shadows and hearing whispers. These are really freaky things that he told me during our exclusive conversation. Take a listen. You mentioned paranormal activity. What exactly did you see?
Well, I was in another room. My brother called me, and there was a upside-down cross, and there was a Jesus statue on it. They ripped Jesus out of it. They threw him like across the room, and it was floating upside down.
Are you saying floating in the air?
Yeah, like in the air. It was floating upside down.
What did you do? I mean, did you go pick it up? Did you knock it down? Like how?
No, I didn't do nothing. I was just sitting there. I was crazy. I was like, what?
But how did it come down? It's not still floating right now, is it?
No, it came down. So we got closer to it and then it just dropped.
It fell to the ground. A crucifix.
Yeah.
Floating in the air, upside down. The Jesus on the crucifix had been ripped off.
Yeah.
And it was floating.
Yeah.
And you can say definitively, without lies, that that is what you saw.
Yes. Swear to God, that's what I saw.
Okay, and what about the Bible? What did you tell me about the Bible?
Oh yeah, the Bible. So I was chilling normal. There was just a Bible just going like this, flipping the pages. But it was like steady, like it wasn't because of the air. It was steady, like somebody was holding it. As soon as I got close to it, it dropped again. It just dropped again.
It's inside your house, not outdoors, no
No,
wind,
it's inside, yeah.
No wind factor, but the page is steadily turning on a Bible.
Yeah.
And you have the same justification for that as well, demonic presence?
Yeah, I can see demonic presence, yeah.
The pages of the Bible were moving on their own and an actual crucifix hanging upside down?
Yeah. So we had a couple priests come over to the house, pray over the house, and everything seems to be normal again.
Are you connecting all these things together, everything you saw in your backyard, to the things you've experienced over these past few months?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I think so. I still have an explanation of what it is, still pretty weird, and I have no clue what it is.
What did the priests say when they actually came to your house?
They're saying that it might be fallen angels, like demons or fallen angels, something like that.
Fallen angels inside your home.
Yeah, that was pretty creepy.
How does it make you feel about living here still?
Right now I feel good, you know. Just a lot of time priests came over, and but yeah, but you know, whatever happened on last year May, that was pretty scary, man. I was pretty traumatized and stuff like that.
What does that look like to you? You said you're traumatized. I don't want to make you relive it.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Pretty bad, man. You can't sleep, you know. Not to sound like a crybaby, but you know, you cry most of the time when you think about it. You get flashbacks. You know, not a good experience.
With all of the paranormal activity happening inside your house, are you thinking about moving away?
Oh yeah, soon I'm gonna move away from this house. Yeah.
Everybody or just you?
Everybody, I think.
You guys are done with this place?
Yeah.
What do you say to the people who believe that your family just made this whole thing up to try to get attention?
They could believe whatever they want, you know. I'm not doing it for fame. If I did it for fame, I would be on YouTube and stuff like that, doing more videos, but I don't care, guys. I just went on TikTok and YouTube, made my story.
And while we certainly have Angel's story to go off of, other people here in this neighborhood have also filled in some of the gaps and some of the things that they found freaky about that night that those two unidentified beings were seen by the Kenmore family in their backyard. For example, a guy who lives just right down the street just saw us out here on the side of the road and began talking to us, and he remembered that night as well. He said that for some bizarre reason, his TV all of a sudden stopped working at that time, that his surveillance cameras no longer were working, his lights were shutting off. So put all of this together, the Kenmore sighting, what the neighbors are reporting, not to mention what those Las Vegas police officers saw on those body-worn cameras, that flash of light streak across the sky 39 minutes before that 911 call. It really is an unexplainable phenomenon happening here in Las Vegas.
Time to put on your mystery hat, because we've got a brand new sighting of a UFO, the kind that we're starting to see a lot more of these days. In fact, this may just be the Honda Civic of interplanetary travel, flying Tic Tacs. Tonight, we have another Tic Tac show, courtesy of investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell and the co-host of his podcast, George Knapp. They got their hands on some video from a U.S. warship off the coast of Southern California. What you're about to see happened back in Feb of 2023. A witness describes what he saw.
But when we start talking about all of the objects, all four objects, and what we witnessed was all four of them, all in synchronous, jetting off into the abyss. All four, all timed together, and all left. And we were like, holy shit. And they were all, maybe the second they left, maybe 3-4 seconds pass, I run to my station and I look at my radar and they're all gone. They're all off radar. And I was like, that's it. They all zoomed off. But it's clear that they're in communication with one another and synchronized, like 3, 2, 1 countdown, let's all go.
This Tic Tac had no typical propulsion, no exhaust, no wings, no tail, no rotors, the kinds of things that we all use to get around. It reminded me, actually, of the first reported Tic Tac sighting back in 2004. That one was also off the coast of Southern California, and it was caught on video by U.S. Navy pilots. So what does it all mean? Ben Hansen always has the answers. He is the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus, kind enough to be with us tonight. Hey, Ben, thanks for doing this. Okay, I'm starting to see a lot of Tic Tacs. Is it time to worry?
Well, Ashley, they've never left. You know, we've been studying this area off of Catalina Island, San Clemente. It's, you know, Southern California. There's a very deep channel that goes between the islands and the mainland. And as you said, back in 2004, this is where that Tic Tac video was filmed and where they were seeing these objects regularly. So in this particular case, you couldn't really ask for anything better. You have eyewitnesses who visually saw it coming up out of the water, by the way, and then recorded it with thermal camera. And also, you know, you have these sensors that were on radar that were able to pick it up.
It's hard to see in the video, but the witness talked about somewhere around 4 of these guys flying in formation. I'm only able to really see one, and I'm not sure the viewers can see better than I do, but talk to me about this business about formation. I'm not sure we've seen multiple Tic Tacs before.
So if you remember way back with the Nimitz case, they had been seeing multiple objects show up on radar, and then they would instantaneously show up maybe 60 miles away and somewhere else. So a lot of these do involve multiple objects. In this particular video, which they're still looking at, I can maybe make out two. This is not the raw footage, by the way. This comes from, I believe, one of their smartphones as they were recording the screen. So we're not seeing the whole footage. That hasn't been released yet. But remembering that they visually saw this, and then when they go back out to the bridge to look for it, they watched at least 4 of these move away in synchronous fashion instantaneously, just disappeared.
So you mentioned the Nimitz. There's this fighter, this warship as well, this incident. There's the U.S. Navy pilots who were flying a jet when they saw their Tic Tac. Seems like the Tic Tacs are around a lot of our military assets, which makes me start to wonder, is this really otherworldly, or is this just really sophisticated potential spycraft of another nation?
And the question always is, that's a scary thought as well, because this is not what we call next generation technology. It's not something that we could maybe realistically achieve in the next, 10, 20 years. When you can instantaneously disappear and reappear 60 miles away, I mean, that's really, in my opinion, beyond what we have available. And also the Tic Tac shape, we're seeing a lot of that, but in this area too, we've got spheres. I've got reports that, boat operators have had what looks like a city of light. I mean, a whole city coming up from underneath them, everything lit up around them like daylight. And that jets have possibly been scrambled to intercept and try to find out what's going on under the water. So this is a hotspot location. It's not just isolated to the West Coast, but the Tic Tac shape does seem to be something that is reoccurring often.
Can't believe you just said whole cities underwater. I am not going to sleep tonight, Ben Hansen, thanks to you, Friday.
NewsNation working to uncover the mystery in our skies, revealing brand new video of an alleged UFO retrieval. Take a look at your screen. Footage that was never before seen until last night's special report, going viral today. A white egg-like object with no visible propulsion system or engine. Whistleblower Jake Barber sitting down with our NewsNation special correspondent Ross Coulthard, breaking down shocking claims about an alleged UFO crash retrieval program. And for years, people like David Grush and Lou Elizondo have alleged the existence of such a program. But now this decorated Air Force veteran says he knows it's true because he was a part of it. The whistleblower claiming he was contracted as a helicopter pilot to retrieve all kinds of crashed craft. He says some of non-human origin. Those experiences affecting his life to this day, he says. And he is not the only one, with multiple others trained at the elite levels of the U.S. military also coming forward. For more on this, we're welcoming in Nick Pope. He previously served as a UFO investigator for the UK Ministry of Defense. And Nick, it is good to see you again this evening. And you were trained at looking at evidence of UAPs. So let's start with the new video that is now really racking up views tonight. What do you see in it? And what do you make of the egg-shaped object? Is it in line with the other accounts that you've seen?
It's consistent with some, but absolutely, as you say, the story is going viral on social media. Everyone's got an opinion on this, so it seems. As you say, there's no visible means of propulsion here, no wings, no fuselage, no engines. And look, if this is some sort of reconnaissance device, for example, the Pentagon could very quickly put this whole story to bed and say, look, what you're looking at in this footage is X. But so far as I'm aware, they've not said that. So the mystery continues, but we still, the picture only tells us so much. What we really need now is more information. Where was this picked up? Where was it dropped off? Where is it now?
Yeah, and what else do you make of the whistleblower's claims at the center of all of this, Jake Barber? Anything standing out, and what more questions do you have?
Well, clearly the raw emotion that we saw from him was visceral, and this sort of reaction is very interesting, and I hope that my understanding is that this is now with the Senate Intelligence Committee. I don't know whether he has formally testified to them behind closed doors or just had informal discussions with staffers. But they've got to get to the bottom of this. And they and indeed others in Congress have now got to take his story, piece it together with what we're being told by people like David Grush and Lou Elizondo, who you mentioned, and really say what the big picture is here.
Yeah, tell me more about this. The emotional high point, as you're referring to, he says he was possessed by some kind of energy. And, you know, NewsNation's Ross Coulthart even asks him in that moment, did you have a mental break on the job? Did this account make you dismiss, make you question the credibility of his report? Or is this something that you have heard before in your research?
No, I've absolutely seen this emotional response that witnesses have when they're up close and personal to something like this. Now, we don't know whether this comes from the individuals themselves or whether it's an external stimulus. But again, it's an area that needs further research. And of course, tomorrow we have the perfect opportunity. I mean, the timing here is no accident. This is a gauntlet that's been thrown down. I think I've even heard that phrase used. And President Trump has said on day one, we will get a report on the drones, also JFK, RFK, and other matters of public interest. Now, was he hinting at UFOs? I don't know, but I hope so.
Do you have a message for President-elect Trump tonight?
Yeah, give us the goods. You know, we can take it.
Nick Pope, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, this morning we have some new photos from what New Yorkers think are flying UFOs above Manhattan.
This comes as a new report says UFO sightings are up this year in New York. Gerard Bailey is right here with us to show us what the evidence looks like.
One of my favorite topics, guys. So the National UFO Reporting Center, founded back in 1974, says UFO sightings are up 4% in New York City. So last year there were 27 sightings. This year, a whopping 28. National UFO Reporter Center lets users upload pictures of depictions of what they've seen around the world. This is a picture from Queens someone took on September 21st. That submission says the craft was changing directions, going left and right and up and down and hovering multiple times, going all over the place. And they say it lasted about 5 minutes. Now, the Empire State Building seems to be an attraction as well for UFO sightings. At least 13 reports mention the skyscraper, including this one from back in February. The person who submitted this says they took the pictures while at a crosswalk, didn't notice the 6 orbs until the next day. Guys, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's probably aliens.
It's always good to know you're not alone, but not actually in this case.
I don't know. I think it's drones.
The 1947 alleged alien space crash in Roswell, New Mexico, sparked national interest about UFOs. Well, fast forward to 1952, and the nation was sent into another extraterrestrial frenzy with the Washington flyover. On July 19, 1952, an air traffic controller reported seeing 7 unidentified flying objects. A week later, UFOs were seen above the White House, also the Capitol. Air Force fighter jets weren't fast enough to catch them. And later, the government said they were weather-related incidents, but new research suggests otherwise.
It seems that there is a strong correlation between multiple transients and UFO events, and that in case we can show this correlation in a strong way, we would actually find support for that we see that UFOs are related to artificial objects.
NewsNation special correspondent Ross Coulthart talks with a physicist and astronomer studying artificial objects in space in his latest episode of NewsNation's Reality Check podcast. Right now, the link to Reality Check with Ross Coulthart is live. All you got to do, take out your phone right now, scan that QR code at the bottom of your screen here. You can also visit NewsNation's website or YouTube page to get that link. Okay, joining me now, we have Ross Coulthart with us live this morning. Ross, good morning to you. You've piqued our interest, as usual. You talked to this doctor. What's her hypothesis about what happened?
Good morning, Marky. Well, it's a fascinating story. It's a case of now you see it, now you don't. Beatrice Villarol, Dr. Beatrice Villarol, is based in Sweden, and she had this very clever idea of looking at photographs that were taken before human satellites went into orbit, so before Sputnik in 1957. And she happened to look at photographic glass plates that were taken by the Palomar Observatory in California, and she looked in the exact weekends for the 2 flyover periods over Washington, D.C., and she found 1 minute it was not there, and half an hour later on these glass plate slides, it was there. There were these objects in orbit, maybe way out in deep space. We don't know how far out they were, but Dr. Villarol hypothesizes, she can't say categorically, she hypothesizes that there might be a link with the weekend incidents on the 2 weekends, consecutive weekends in 1952, for what is and remains America's biggest and most mysterious UFO sighting over the national capital. And it's fascinating because these glass plates show these objects were there in a half-hour period and then they were gone. And this was over 2 weekends.
Yeah.
Just 30 minutes apart.
You and I have talked extensively about UFOs, UAPs. What exactly is an artificial object in space?
Well, an artificial object is like for us, it's our satellites. It's satellites, rockets, any kind of terrestrial technology that's been put up there. And what's clever about Dr. Villarol's research is she recognized that before 1957, before the Soviets beat us with their Sputnik satellite, there was nothing up there, at least nothing that we knew about. And so it's possible to look at those glass plate negatives and compare them with present day photographs and see whether there's anything that isn't there that should be if they were genuine photographs of the night sky. And so an artificial object is something that frankly can't be explained by a planet, a meteor, or a star. And what she's discovered is that there are these objects, and she calls them transients. They're there 1 minute and they're gone the next. And so there is a possibility that what they are, is some kind of spacecraft.
And what about space debris? I think you touch on this too. Back in the 1950s, there was very little space debris as compared to now. What's changed?
Well, in the 1950s, before 1957, there was absolutely none because we didn't have any objects. We hadn't put anything into space before 1957. So that's what's so special about these early photographic images. They are clear, high-resolution images taken by some of America's top observatories of what the night sky looked like back then. And we can compare that with the present day and see whether there are any objects that have disappeared off those slides. And there are, and that's the fascinating thing about this work. It raises the possibility that there were objects in Earth orbit on the very weekends that we had one of the biggest UFO sightings in American history.
NewsNation has independently obtained previously unseen video obtained from a secret UAP craft retrieval program. This extraordinary footage clearly shows an egg-shaped object dangling in a sling below the belly of a helicopter.
Let's slow this down to take a closer look. That's an egg-shaped UAP suspended from a 150-foot long line. We're told the craft is about 20 feet long. The egg suspended in a cradle. And look how careful the pilot is as they bring their precious cargo into land. Let's freeze frame here to look at one of the clearest images of a UAP ever taken. This is no blurry light in a distant sky. The source of the footage putting themselves at incredible risk to record this UAP retrieval. Look at how perfectly smooth the craft is. No markings at all, and no visible means of propulsion or way to see inside. Watch how it rolls, almost graceful as it hits the ground, despite being wrapped in the ropes and canvas from the cradle as it's dropped for pickup. The UAP's final destination still unknown.
It's been a little over a month since an airline passenger named Michelle Reyes was flying over Manhattan and shooting the skyline with her cell phone, which is what we all do. But something zipped past her window at an extremely high rate of speed. And no matter how many times she watched that video or how many people she shared it with, no one could say what that something was. We know it is cylinder-shaped and vaguely resembles a Tic Tac. And it isn't too dissimilar from another sighting that came to light 4 years ago in 2020. That was when the Pentagon declassified a slew of UFO videos. That sighting stood out mostly because of the kind of people who saw it. Back in 2004, 20 years ago, multiple anomalous aerial vehicles, or UAPs, were detected on radar about 100 miles southwest of San Diego. And a pair of Navy pilots, fighter pilots, described what they saw to 60 Minutes. And soon after they saw what they saw, another flight crew in another jet was able to lock on to what was believed to be the same Tic Tac object, whatever it was. And they captured the now famous infrared video. And before that Tic Tac sped off again, that's what they saw. And then in yet another video that was declassified and released by the Navy, a similar object is captured on radar in 2015, 11 years later. And this time you can hear the pilots in disbelief at what they're seeing. Listen to the cockpit comms.
Dude, there's a drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Look at that thing, it's rotating. Just 2 weeks after this sighting, a second sighting happened. And then flash forward to last month. How does the object that Michelle Reyes saw from her airplane window stack up to the videos and the intelligence the Pentagon already knew about? For that, I turned to retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich. Lieutenant Commander Dietrich was a pilot training with the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group when she was sent to investigate that Tic Tac UFO in 2004. And then the commander saw it for herself. Thank you so much for joining me. I have been dying to talk to you about this. I wanted to get your whole take on what Michelle Reyes saw out the airplane window.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for covering this topic with a serious tone. I know that when we talk about UFOs, a lot of people can snicker or, play the spooky music, and there's a stigma around it. But really, here we are 20 years after we had our encounter off the west coast of California and the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group in the middle of military training operations. And we are similarly shrugging our shoulders and saying, what is this? And where did it come from? What sort of technology is this? And is it a friend or foe? So, it's very hard to tell from Ms. Reyes's video what it might be. The problem with cell phone cameras is the resolution just isn't that good. And it's such a short clip, it's hard to analyze. So, something that I've been speaking to or trying to advocate for is that we invest in the hardware and the sensors to capture better footage and then bring to bear all the technology that we have available in order to analyze it and make sense of it.
I'm with you. The only thing is that from me, and I'm nowhere near as skilled as you are, it seems like it's so much better resolution than the radar showed. Like all of a sudden I can see that thing and it's shiny. But I wanted to ask you about 20 years ago, how you were treated when you and your fellow naval pilot in the cockpit reported what you saw. And do you think is any different now? Are we getting better and more serious, again, with our tone and attitude to trying to get to some answers?
Right. Well, there were actually 4 people at the time. There were 2 aircraft, and each aircraft had a pilot and a weapons systems officer. So we had 4 folks with eyes on, and then we had the separate aircraft and crew, so 6 folks, and they were the ones who got the FLIR footage, and that's the forward-looking infrared, and that's why it's so grainy and not very good quality, because you're actually looking at a thermal image there. It's not a camera in the traditional sense. So as far as our reception in 2004, again, we were in a military training exercise off the coast of California relatively soon after the events of 9/11. And so folks were concerned. We were concerned that we couldn't identify it, that we couldn't say whether it was a friend or foe, if it was an adversary, whether it was somebody spying on us with surveillance. And so that was concerning at the time, and we didn't hesitate to report. Of course, we received some good-natured ribbing in the aftermath, jokes of little green men and all that. But, in the years since, 2 decades now, we have made slow but steady progress towards trying to come up with a systematic way to report these incidents. When you see something, say something, and then to take them seriously and to investigate them. And again, the technology has improved over that time as well.